I went to Moravian College for a considerable length of time. I immediately made a major gathering of companions there, and we'd go out each end of the week, one end of the week on a Saturday night in September, when my gathering had no large plans together. Me and two other dear companions chose to hang out in the school. Nature protected by the lake. There was this little getting on the far side free from the lake that was helpful for flames, since it was such a long ways from perspective on the school or grounds. Security children would in some cases yet not frequently come here to smoke pot, drink, and do essentially the wide range of various medications. It was a generally obscure spot nearby by most, and we like there's nothing else to it this evening. We just brought a lot of Lagers, got a fire going, and hung out, having what we alluded to at the time as a brochette as the night advanced. Time appeared to elapse speedier as the liquor produced results. Ultimately, it reached the place where we were all giggling so hard that one of my two companions was on the floor, moving in the leaves. That was the point at which my other companion quit snickering and went. We as a whole livened up and tuned in and heard the crunching of leaves and branches. Somewhere out there, we tossed our jugs in the lake since we were all under 20, and it wasn't unfathomable for grounds police to get through the forest on ends of the week to discover kids taking medications. We get the other brews into a rucksack. I was reasonably tipsy, so my neurosis was higher than regular. That was presumably the situation for us all. The fire presented us to anybody going through the forest. Yet the thing is, this spot was so obscure and a long way from grounds that it was uncommon to find any other individual that profound into the forest. It seemed like only one individual somewhere out there. A tree limb snapping not excessively far away cracked us all out. Not a single one of us were actually the fierce ones from our gathering, so we were deficient with regards to that one individual who might have the certainty to stand up and holler out to whoever was out there. Rather, we as a whole sat peacefully shushing each other. We heard what appeared to be a person or thing surrounding us, or possibly strolling around in a C shape around our little camping area. It, in a real sense, began to feel like we were in the film The Blair Witch Venture, in light of the fact that these sounds in the close to remove like breaking tree limbs, and leaves crunching on the ground continued to reverberate over to our camping area. We chuckled about it from the beginning, yet I, for one, before long became unnerved by who or what it very well may be. Unexpectedly, a gigantic crash made each of the three of us hop. At first, I didn't see. Despite the fact that I saw what caused the sound, it took me a couple of moments to process the way that a branch had been tossed into the focal point of our little fireside. One of my two companions took off running while my other companion and I sat behind, taking a gander at one another, half snickering, half concerned. I feel as we didn't have any idea yet in the event that this was some sort of joke or not. Then my companion let out a shout of torment as he was struck in the face by another tree limb. I snatched the knapsack, helped my companion up off the floor, and we pulled ass back toward our quarters. When we came to the street isolating the nature safeguard from our residence, we halted to pause and rest. Yet whoever was out there ended up being following us when we heard strides drawing nearer to the street. We kept on running back to the residence, and when we returned to our floor, we found our other companion in his room. As of now, we watched out of his room window down to the forest. There was somebody walking forward and backward by the forest, and each time a vehicle elapsed, they would stroll once more into the forest at last. Whoever it was returned into the forest for good, to at no point ever be found. In the future, by us, we proceeded with our savoring meeting the apartment, and in the span of 15 minutes, we were all giggling about it. Was only after the following morning that we as a whole acknowledged how frightening that experience truly was. We never truly returned into the forest past dim after that. I had a solitary residence my most memorable semester of sophomore year. It was toward the edge of the floor, sort of detached from the remainder of the apartments. Since it was in its own little segment, you needed to turn a corner to try and see the entryway. It was decent in light of the fact that I'd have the option to, in any case, converse with companions on my floor, welcome individuals over to my room, yet have protection when the time had come to do schoolwork, or nod off half a month into the semester while reading up for a biotest. The quietness was interfered with by a clamor. It took me a piece to acknowledge it was a light tapping on the entryway. It was light to such an extent that I nearly didn't hear it. I hollered, "Come in." However, the entryway didn't open, so I got up to open it. No one was there. I strolled around the bend to peer a few doors down. No one. Someone was clearly playing with me. I returned to my bed and kept concentrating on this time leaving the entryway open. No one returned the following night. A couple of moments subsequent, to closing the light in my room to hit the sack. The tapping on the entryway returned just this time. It was a lot stronger to a greater degree. A thumping sound. I got down on "Who is it?" And again the thumping halted and no one addressed. I escaped my bed rapidly and made the way for C. My little confidential passageway was drained of any individuals again. I ran the 10 feet from my entryway to the corner to peer down the fundamental foyer of the floor. No one. The following morning I inquired as to whether they had been screwing with me. Everybody said no. The following night I awakened in the wake of having been sleeping for 3 hours. Somebody was thumping on my entryway again, this time stronger than at any other time. I experienced difficulty choosing whether to open the entryway or not, this time with an episode of boldness. I jumped up and opened the entryway. No one was there as I was expecting. Yet this time I full-on ran down the small passage segregating my room. And when I turned the corner, I saw the rear of someone vanishing behind the furthest corner on the contrary side of the corridor. I ran as quick as possible down the lobby, and as I went to the following corridor, where I saw the individual a couple of moments prior, I saw an entryway toward the finish of the foyer closing. It was anything but an apartment. It was a restroom. I felt like I was prepared to stand up to whoever this joker was, so I pushed open the restroom. Entryway with power. The light was off. I turned it on, hoping to see someone concealing in there, yet I didn't see anybody. My most memorable sense was to check the 2 restroom slows down, which were both closed. I got on all fours and looked under the 2 slows down. 2 weighty dark boots should have been visible from under one of the slow down entryways. I took a full breath and pushed the slow down open. I was confounded. There were the boots sitting on the floor, yet no individual to wear them. And afterward I heard a dreadful snickering commotion. Thank you, not a female or an honest one. It was a sort of chuckling that I could barely comprehend to be that of a truly old, insane individual for reasons unknown. My certainty was gone, and I was frightened. Shitless, consequently, I ran back to my room and shut the entryway. I bounced back in my bed and began messaging each companion I had. Obviously, everyone was snoozing. However, the thumping happened once again. That evening, I disregarded it happened for around 40 seconds before whoever that individual was, at long last surrendered. I addressed everyone on my floor the following day. No other person heard any thumping, and everyone swore they weren't tricking me. Everyone appeared to be genuine. I don't have the foggiest idea why this individual decided to bug me, or who this individual was deciding by the boots and the giggling. I heard this was a more established man, however, and that upsets me. This happens during the principal's 7-day stretch of school, my first year at the College of Yale. I was simply beginning to become familiar with my flatmate. He was committed to surging a club, and rush week was beginning the following week, yet the gatherings were beginning. Thursday of the main week, my flatmate would have rather not gone alone on the grounds that it would be more earnestly to meet individuals that way. So he maintained that me should go. I cheerfully consented to go with him, despite the fact that I cared very little about hurrying a crew. I actually had expectations to show up at parties after all. I was going to a party school. My flatmate needed to hit up one fraternity party on Thursday, and afterward parties at various fraternity houses on Friday and Saturday. On this Thursday night, we were made a beeline for maybe perhaps of the most minimal positioned rascal. I'm almost certain it was an underground one as well. Yet his rationale in going to was to have a reinforcement fraternity on the off chance that the higher ones wouldn't give him a bid. The fraternity house was truly distant from grounds and a significantly more slummy midtown region. We pulled up to a corner house, and if not for the impacting music and vehicles left wherever we could. Never picture this house as a fraternity house. It in a real sense appeared as though they settled with the primary house they found. We thumped on the way to quickly be welcomed by some short, rotund person in a white shirt holding a performance cup. His shirt had sweat finishes by his armpits and mid-stomach region. He advised us to come squarely, and the actual party was in a terribly faintly lit room with likely 50 people packed up into the parlor. It was hot as damnation in there, to exacerbate it. I assume I saw perhaps 2 young ladies at the whole party, neither of them really near appealing. I gave the party a decent 30 minutes chatting with an endless flow of overweight outsiders generally radiating enemy of social energies. Ultimately, I waved for my flatmate to prepare to leave, yet a colossal gathering of folks by the entryway caused us to choose to stand by somewhat longer to keep away from the ponderousness of leaving early. I kept on drinking the modest lagers they were serving. I assume I brought down 5 cups before I actually might feel a buzz. A weighty person moved toward me with a minuscule jug in his grasp and gave it to me, sneering and saying, "That will get you poo confronted." I counterfeit chuckled and said thanks to him, anticipating that he should disappear. Yet he just watched me, as though you were sitting tight for me to drink it. So I did. It was perhaps 2 shots worth of some sort of hard alcohol. The person then, at that point, began making discussion with me, and each time I indicated that I was attempting to move away, he would attempt to pull me further into this generally uneven discussion. Things began to get truly hazy. Pretty soon, I felt bleary-eyed out of nowhere, and the room appeared to be getting hazier. That was the final thing I recall, prior to awakening in a dim room. Laying in a bed, I could hear the sound of music stifled in secret, so I realized I was still in the fraternity house. It was an extremely dim room anyway. I may as yet verify furniture in the room and a little storeroom entryway. Not much else, however, yet considerably. Over the booming music, I heard a plastic sack being crunched from the wardrobe, as though someone had stepped on it unintentionally. I ran out of that room and down the steps back to the stuffed lounge. I found my flatmate and pushed him out. The front entryway, past the gathering of folks actually remaining in a circle right close to it during the vehicle ride back to grounds. I told my flatmate I was tranquilized. He nearly called the police, yet I said it would be silly and futile. My flatmate then posed me an off-kilter inquiry. I made the most of. I felt no kind of torment, and my garments were all still on something very similar. So I accepted. Not when I did a period look at, I understood I'd just a brief time prior to awakening anything that the person gave me probably been a flop or something. Say thanks to God that was my school insight of going to an underground ghetto fraternity party. And it stays to be my most terrifying educational experience. Friends, if you liked what I said, then do like it. If you have not subscribed the channel, then subscribe. There are many more interesting stories like this in my channel. Do listen to them too, and thank you for listening to this story till here.